Hey guys, Rick Taylor here with KS USA. Today we're going to talk about how to install your new KS Seatpost. So the tools you're going to need for installation are Allen set, utility knife, diagonal cutters or wire cutters, carbon friction paste, zip ties or tie wraps, and a measuring tape. The first step in installing your new seat post is to determine and record your seat position. With a tape measure, measure from the center of your seat rail down to the center of your crank and record that dimension. Next, measure from the center of your steer tube or the bolt in your star nut to the tip of your saddle. Also record that dimension. The next step in installing your post is to remove your existing seat and seat post from the bike. Next, with a clean lint-free rag, clean the inside of your seat tube. You don't want to have any grease or residue present inside when you install your new post. Next, with a carbon friction paste, apply a thin film inside the seat tube. Okay, so the next step is going to be to put the post in the bike, and one of the nice features with the LEV is that the cable anchor can rotate 360 degrees. So to utilize that, you're going to want to look at your frame and try to find the best position to route your cable. Generally speaking, if you've got cable guides already existent on the frame, use those. If you don't have cable guides, look for the cleanest, most direct route up to where your remote's going to be on your handlebar. Once you've determined that position, get your measuring tape back out, measure from your seat clamp down to the center of your crank and set it back at the dimension that you had your original post at, and go ahead and tighten that down. Okay, so now that we have the post height set and the cable anchor in the correct orientation, next thing we want to do is set the head up to point the correct direction on the bike. So I'm going to take off the two bolts here. And then you set the top half of the clamp aside. Next, the small flathead screwdriver. Unthread the small cap. Remove that. Now to kind of help you in alignment, it's a good idea to use the bottom cradle. You're going to pull this up and you'll look inside and there's some detent bearings inside with some detent positions inside this top cap. Set that in place. Now if you put the cradle in, it makes it very easy to align this. Sight down the bike and make sure that you have this in a position where that is going to point forward to the front of the bike. Next, go ahead and put your cap back in. And tighten that down. Then go ahead and reassemble the clamp. Now when I put the clamp together, I like to put a small dab of the composite fiber, grip fiber inside, and that keeps these small spherical nuts from sliding around inside. It makes them a lot easier to tighten up. So I'm going to put those back in. Okay, our next step is going to be to reinstall the saddle. Now, referencing the measurement we took earlier, we're going to measure from the center of the star net to the tip of the saddle. Make that adjustment. And then just snug down your saddle. You don't need to tighten this yet. Just snug it down so the saddle position doesn't move. Okay, so now we're going to install our remote. If you're running a standard grip that's a non-ODI, go ahead and remove the bolt. This is a clamshell clamp design, so you can put that around your handlebar. Install the bolt. And then position your remote so that you have good ergonomic function, but you also want to check and make sure that that's not going to hit your shifter. So ideally you want a good balance between ergonomics and clearance. When you find that position, go ahead and tighten this down and lock it up. If your bike is equipped with an ODI lock-on grip, loosen the grip and remove it from the bike. With a small flathead screwdriver, remove your inner locking collar and reinstall the grip on the bike. Next, remove the bolt. Install your remote. And you want to, there's an interface inside the ODI grip that will lock into your remote. Once you get that set, check for clearance. Ideally, you want to again have a good balance between clearance and ergonomics. Once you have that position set, you can then install the bolt. And tighten the clamp down. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install our cable housing. Slide the housing ferrule into the remote. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to use a zip tie to anchor this housing to an adjacent cable. In this case, we're going to anchor it to the front brake cable. Okay, your next step is going to be to go ahead and find any cable routing that might already be on the frame. It's advisable to use that. If you don't have cable routing on your frame, you can also use a zip tie around the frame. Just make sure that if you have other cables running in the area that you don't pinch those down with a zip tie. You want to make sure that you run that underneath and just against the frame. Okay, we're going to route this up. Just leave a moderate bend there. You don't want to cut that too short and cause binding, but just get a moderate bend there. We'll go ahead and use our cable cutters. We're going to cut that. Next step is to install the barbed ferrule. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and install our inner cable. I'm going to feed that up through the hole in the remote here. Now make sure you give that a good tug, make sure it's seated properly up there. Also make sure you give this one more push and make sure that barbed ferrule is also in all the way. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and cut the inner cable to length. And what you want to do is measure from the barb out 22 millimeters. and at 22 millimeters, I'm going to go ahead and cut that cable. Sometimes the cable will untwist a little bit. Just go ahead and give it a twist clockwise direction, and that'll realign all of those fibers. Okay, now we're going to put our return spring and locking cable end on. Then install the set screw. Okay, now you have a spot for an Allen key on one side, and then go ahead and tighten down that set screw. And that's the assembly. Now our next step, if you look here, the kind of has a claw shape. There's a barrel inside here. You want to hook that up underneath. It's going to travel down. Spring stays up above the stop. The barb ferrule drops in position. And that's the assembly. Okay, so now with the bike on the ground, we're going to go ahead and set the seat level. And you want to go ahead and loosen up the bolt slightly. And now this saddle happens to be nose up, so we're going to go ahead and tighten this bolt, and that's going to help bring that nose down. Once you get these set where you want them, go ahead and torque these by alternating back and forth, and torque them down to 10 Newton meters. Once those are tight, you're ready to go. Last thing before going out on a ride, test the function. Go enjoy.